if you do not support the killing of innocent children, then you are an enemy of God. The Seventh-day Adventist Church's Liberty magazine recently published an article here titled Natural Laws by a Mr. Edwin Cook, who is listed as former Director of Religious Liberty for the Texas Conference, and he's also listed with the Allegheny East Conference in Pennsylvania. Speaking about the recent passing of anti-abortion laws in several states, he says history shows that combining religion and politics results in losses for both. Religion that co-opts the political process becomes a persecuting force. In such circumstances, religion loses its divine character and becomes sullied with the carnal nature of contenders in the ring of power politics. Additionally, religion becomes odious in the eyes of non-religionists who are forced to comply with a moral mandate that they oftentimes neither understand nor can sincerely embrace. In essence, God's character is maligned. Read that again. God's character is maligned before unbelievers by professed followers who seek political power to bend the masses according to their moral dictates. That is not true. That is false. This entire article is an attempt to cast as much suspicion as possible upon those who want to make the killing of children illegal, and he openly claims that in doing so, they are maligning or attacking the very character of God. This is not Photoshopped. This is not fake. Right here in black and white, the Adventist Church's official Liberty magazine claims that seeking to protect a child from being violently dismembered and killed is an attack upon God's character. If you want the killing of children to be illegal, then you are on the side of the enemy. You are exhibiting the characteristics not of Christ, but of Satan. If you are a member of the Adventist Church, you need to understand what this means. The mask is coming off as the movement to stop killing children gains momentum. We are seeing more and more leaders in our church drop the mask and reveal what they really think and believe. If you are against killing children, then you are the enemy of God. And to show you just how hypocritical, to show you just how absurd this is, here is the author speaking at an Adventist church. He's greeting some of the visitors there from Nigeria and makes reference to the terrorist group Boko Haram. Now listen carefully to what he says.
Those of you that introduced yourself today as being here as visitors from Nigeria, you're well acquainted with the radical Muslim group Boko Haram that it has done a lot of damage and destruction and taken lives of individuals there in your country. That is an example of an issue of religious freedom, where one religious group is exercising their religious freedom, but in a wrong way, going to the extent of taking the lives of others and harming society. We as Seventh-day Adventists champion religious liberty and freedom of conscience, provided that the individuals or the organization is not something that is violent in nature or harms society.
He said that Boko Haram in Nigeria is exercising religious freedom in a wrong way by, quote, going to the extent of taking the lives of others, and that freedom of conscience does not apply to what is, quote, violent in nature or harm society. This is completely insane. He stands there and preaches that religious liberty is not freedom to harm or take the lives of others, but then completely contradicting himself in the official magazine, he says that if you want laws to protect children from being murdered, then you are the enemy of God. You are maligning and attacking God's character. And look at this right here. Religion that co-opts the political process becomes a persecuting force. Again, this is not true. This is false. Adventist pioneers openly advocated against slavery. They openly denounced the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, and they urged for temperance legislation to outlaw alcohol. And there is not a single shred of evidence that doing so made them in any way a persecuting force. Adventists even today urge legislation outlawing gambling and smoking. Does that mean we are now the persecuting force of the beast of Revelation? This makes no sense whatsoever. Religion becomes odious in the eyes of non-religionists who are forced to comply with a moral mandate that they oftentimes neither understand nor can sincerely embrace. That Liberty magazine actually published this is so embarrassing. This man openly, very publicly argued that freedom of conscience does not apply if you want to hurt or kill other people. So, whether a group who wants to kill others is forced to comply with the law is not an argument. I was in prison. I spent 10 years of my life in prison. There are lots of armed robbers, murderers, and rapists in prison. Should we now throw out all of our laws because my former cellmates do not, quote, sincerely embrace laws against robbery and rape? This is completely absurd. By the mid-1900s, the Catholic Church developed natural law arguments to address such growing social issues within America as abortion, and several decades later to weigh in on social debates involving homosexuality, ecological concerns, economic disparity, and abortion again. As you will see in just a minute, this author is completely misrepresenting the history of abortion in the USA. During the mid-1900s, there are several important points that he is ignoring. Number one, advancements in technology now made abortion safer for the woman, whereas previously to attempt abortion or many other surgeries was tantamount to suicide. And number two, advancements in technology allowed for the discovery that life began at conception, not several months later when you could then feel the baby moving around. And number three, both of these factors prompted the American Medical Association to begin the Physicians' Crusade, which aggressively pressed the states to outlaw abortion. It was already outlawed by common law, but was now codified in statutory law. By 1900, every state had anti-abortion laws on the books, and these laws were passed with overwhelming unanimous support. Importantly, the Catholic Church remained largely what? Largely silent on abortion in the 19th century in the USA. One strand of anti-abortion rhetoric expressed a strong anti-Catholic feeling. Catholics were not involved in legislative efforts to craft legal prohibitions of abortion. The entire anti-abortion movement, including writings, preaching, and legislation, was led almost exclusively by Protestants. Catholics had nothing to do with this. So the author's claim that the church weighed in on social debates about abortion again is false. In America's fixation with allowing women to choose regarding the care of their bodies, how dishonest can you be? The fixation is not on a woman's choice. It's about whether or not a little boy or girl should be violently killed. This article is so dishonest. He himself argued on video, you heard his own words, that Boko Haram should not have any freedom of choice to hurt or kill others. So why is it that women in America can do so? If we follow this line of thinking, does this mean that an American woman who moved to Nigeria will lose her freedom? And does that mean that if Boko Haram comes to America, they are now free to kill others? Of course not. This is completely absurd. Why is it that Africans should not have this freedom, but Americans should? What makes the Americans so special? He, of course, does not explain. And since Edwin Cook is so concerned about allowing women to choose, what is the biblical principle that distinguishes a baby born 2 months premature from a 7-month fetus, making it a crime to kill the first, but merely an exercise of personal freedom to destroy the second? His entire foundation, if he even has one, rests upon his ability to answer this question. But of course, he cannot answer it because his claims are false. By the way, he printed these accusations publicly for all of the world to see. I don't have to contact him before I publish my response video, but I did so anyway, and of course, he would not give any answer. When one examines the public statements of those legislators and proponents of the recent anti-abortion bans, it becomes evident that look at this word, that a cross-pollination of ideas has occurred between Catholic natural law theory and Protestant justification for those laws. In other words, he's saying that Protestants have been brainwashed by Catholics. Again, this is so ignorant and historically and theologically inaccurate and so embarrassing that this is published by our church. First of all, as I've already cited, go pick up a history book and actually read some history before publishing this nonsense. Second, Adventist pioneers openly and publicly condemned other Protestant denominations for supporting abortion. They published anti-abortion sermons by non-Adventists in our own official journals, and they publicly supported anti-abortion legislation. Does this now mean that Adventist pioneers were somehow duped by Catholics? And again, I asked him this question in a very polite and respectful manner, and again, he refused to answer. State voters agreed to write anti-abortion language in the Alabama Constitution, saying that the state recognizes the rights of the unborn. Oh well, would you look at that? Why would you put the word unborn in quotes? Is it because he believes that some children do not have the right to live? Is it because he is anti-science and believes that the unborn child is not an unborn child? Or is it because he rejects the Bible and believes that the authors of both the Old and New Testaments, that they were wrong when they defined the unborn as living human children? These are fair and reasonable questions, and again, I asked him in a very polite and respectful manner, but again, he refused to give any answer or evidence. Adventist pioneers consistently and unanimously condemned abortion as child murder and infanticide. Ellen White herself defined and described the unborn as living human children. Does this mean that all of our Adventist pioneers were actually Jesuit infiltrators, secretly waiting to implement dominionism theology? This man publicly slandered pro-lifers as enemies of God and did not provide a single shred of evidence. This is so pathetic and so unprofessional, and I'm sure that Mr. Cook will soon show up at a church near you to ask for a religious liberty offering so that they can continue to publish this garbage. Do you see how this works? If you do not support killing children by abortion, then they need more money so that they can write articles insulting you and slandering others and then paying for this propaganda to be sent out to 200,000 people. So disgusting.